The golden key to my childhood home turned uselessly in my trembling fingers. Behind me, my twin daughters Maya and Sophie shivered in their funeral dresses, still damp from tears shed over their father's grave just hours before. When the door finally opened, my mother Isabella stood there in designer clothes, not a trace of grief for the son-in-law we'd just buried. My name is Victoria Sterling. I'm 29, and until 6 months ago, I was a successful digital marketing executive with a corner office and a 6-figure salary. That all changed when my husband James was diagnosed with stage 4 pancreatic cancer at just 31. I became his full-time caregiver, liquidating our savings account worth $47,000 for experimental treatments that promised hope but delivered only false promises. When our lease expired during James's final weeks, my parents offered their sprawling suburban home. "Stay as long as you need," my father Robert had said, his hand on my shoulder. "Family takes care of family." I believed them. I was wrong. "The lock's been changed," I whispered, rain soaking through my black dress. My mother's perfectly applied makeup didn't smudge as she delivered the crushing blow. "Cassandra needs your room for her photography studio. She's launching her influencer career." My younger sister Cassandra, 26, the golden child who'd never worked a real day in her life, appeared behind our mother with shopping bags from Nordstrom. She looked at us through the storm, a widow and 2 grieving 5-year-olds, and actually shrugged before stepping inside. "Widow problems aren't family problems," my father declared from the hallway. "You're almost 30, Victoria. Time to grow up." The door slammed with the finality of a coffin closing. I stood frozen as lightning illuminated our abandoned Jeep Cherokee in the driveway. The twins pressed against my legs, their small bodies shaking with cold and confusion. "Mommy, why won't Grandma let us in?" Maya whispered. I had no answer that wouldn't destroy what remained of their innocence. We spent that night at Murphy's 24-hour truck stop, where a waitress named Rosa saw 3 souls in funeral attire and made space in her heart. She rallied the night crew, truck drivers and insomniacs who understood loss, and they pooled tips to rent us a weekly motel room. "Been there, honey," Rosa said, pressing $43 into my palm. "Everyone deserves dignity." In that cramped motel room, watching my daughters sleep on a bed that smelled of industrial detergent and broken dreams, I made a vow. James had been more than my husband. He was a software architect who'd been developing something revolutionary in his final months. Between chemo sessions, he'd whispered about his project. "Family First. It connects struggling families with emergency childcare, meal delivery, and financial resources. It's our legacy. Vic, promise me you'll finish it." I thought it was delirium. I was wrong again. James's life insurance policy was worth $150,000. Money he'd secured by working overtime even while sick. I used half to hire a development team to complete his app. The other half went toward a lawyer who specialized in illegal evictions and a private investigator who helped me understand my family's finances better than they understood them themselves. Turns out my parents were drowning in debt. My father's gambling addiction had consumed their retirement savings. The mortgage on their $340,000 home was 3 months behind. Cassandra's influencer career was funded entirely by credit cards they'd co-signed. Family First launched 8 months after James died. Within weeks, it had 10,000 users. Single parents, struggling families, anyone who needed help but had nowhere to turn. By month 6, we had 100,000 active users and 3 venture capital firms in a bidding war. Meanwhile, I quietly purchased my parents' mortgage through an LLC. They received foreclosure notices from Sterling Property Management, without knowing their estranged daughter now owned their debt. Cassandra's influencer dreams crashed spectacularly when screenshots of her laughing while her sister and nieces stood in the rain went viral on social media. Turns out, one of the motel staff had captured the moment she shrugged at us through the window. The internet is unforgiving to those who abandon children. 3 years later, my assistant forwarded me an email marked, "Urgent. Family emergency." My Aunt Margaret, the only family member who'd maintained contact, had arranged a meeting. My parents needed help. I arrived at Romano's restaurant driving my new Tesla Model X. My daughter's happy and healthy in designer clothes bought with money earned from helping other families. My parents sat hunched over coffee cups, looking decades older than their 68 years. "Victoria, we made mistakes," my mother began, her voice lacking its former authority. "But we're family." "Were," I corrected, cutting into my $45 steak. "You were family until you chose my sister's photography hobby over your grandchildren's shelter." My father's hands shook as he slid foreclosure papers across the table. "We're losing the house. Cassandra can't help. She's living with her boyfriend's mother. We need $20,000, I finished, having already reviewed their finances. "To catch up on 3 years of missed payments plus penalties." The hope in their eyes was heartbreaking. "Almost. I bought your mortgage 2 years ago," I continued casually. "Through Sterling Property Management. Those foreclosure notices. They were from me." My mother's face went white. You own our house?" "Owned," I corrected. "I sold it last week to a lovely family. The Johnsons. They have 3 kids and just lost their father in Afghanistan." The widow, Sarah, reminded me of someone I used to know. I pulled out a brochure and slid it across the table. "Sunset Manor Assisted Living. It's adequate. Basic cable, 3 meals a day medical care. I've paid for 3 months." 3 months. Cassandra had arrived, looking desperate in clothes from Target instead of her former designer wardrobe. "Then what?" "Then you figure it out." I stood to leave, then turned back one final time. "That night you locked us out, Maya asked me if they were bad because Daddy died. She thought that's why Grandma didn't love them anymore. Sophie still has nightmares about standing in the rain." My mother started crying, but I felt nothing. "I would have shared everything with you. The success, the money, watching James's dream help millions of families. All you had to do was open the door that night. Instead, you taught me that blood means nothing when people show you their true nature." Today, Family First serves 2.3 million families across North America. We've facilitated over $50 million in emergency aid, connected 100,000 children with safe childcare, and created a network of support that ensures no family faces crisis alone. I remarried a wonderful man named David, a pediatric nurse who lost his first wife to cancer. We understand loss, which makes us appreciate love even more. Maya and Sophie call him Dad, and our new son Tommy will grow up knowing his family would never abandon him in the rain. Sometimes I drive past Sunset Manor and see them through the windows. 3 people who chose cruelty over compassion, now dependent on the charity of strangers. The other residents avoid them. Nobody likes selfish people, even in assisted living. My daughters sometimes ask why we don't visit Grandma and Grandpa anymore. I tell them the truth. Sometimes people show you exactly who they are when you need them most. And we learned that Grandma and Grandpa only love people who don't have problems. The rain still falls, but we have umbrellas now. We have warmth, security, and the absolute certainty that we'll never be locked out again. Not because of blood family, but because we built something better. A chosen family of people who understand that widow problems, orphan problems, and struggling family problems are everyone's problems. James would be proud. His legacy isn't just code and algorithms. It's proof that sometimes the cruelest rejection becomes your greatest foundation. They thought widow problems weren't their problems. They were right. My problems made me unstoppable. Their problems are no longer mine to solve.